Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome into the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Michael Beller, Brandon Funston, Jake Ciely here with you. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's on Wednesday. If you're listening to this on podcast, it's on Thursday. We had a little bit of a scheduling change for this week. And if you're watching on YouTube, shout outs to Jerome Chang in the Athletics design, video, social department for putting together this sweet new intro video for us here in the backgrounds that we've got. Thank you, Jerome. And thank you to everyone for joining us this week. Brandon, Jake, we've all done our flex drafts. We're going to talk about that here. We're going to talk about some bounce back candidates that we have for the 2021 season. I just had my flex draft yesterday. You guys had yours, probably 10 days ago or so. So feeling good, Brandon, feeling good about what you put together. We're going to talk about your team first. So how do you feel about it overall before we dive in?
I feel pretty good. Yeah, it's one of the more interesting draft processes I've ever done. And we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, definitely looking forward to breaking it all down.
Jake, you like your squad that you've got even had to ruminate it on now for a couple of days here?
I honestly don't even remember half my team at this point.
Oh, well, then this is going to be just as much a surprise for you as it is for the listeners.
It's been a week and a half later. It's too busy getting into the preseason rankings articles and fixing that projections thing for everybody, which thank you, Andrew, by the way. Andrew Terrell, I can actually say his last name. I was just making sure. I don't want to know if he wanted his name out there. So kudos, Andrew Terrell. Help me rebuild that whole damn thing for all you guys. So you hopefully enjoy it.
Yeah, hopefully you're enjoying it. It's a pretty nifty tool. So I guess Andrew deserves a little bit more credit than you do, Jake, for it actually functioning the way it's supposed to now.
He deserves the credit for getting rid of the macros and making it like not get that warning that virus detected and a lot of it. So yeah, that's what. Yeah, definitely.
You're the brawn and he's the brains behind it all, is what you're saying.
Possibly. I put it that way. That works.
All right,
pulling
guys,
up the draft right now.
Let's do it. Pull up the draft. We're going to go through each of our drafts individually, and obviously there are going to be some areas where they dovetail and where one person's draft feeds into another and whatever, but going to structure it in such a way that we talk about Brandon's team for a little bit, then Jake's, and then mine. Brandon and I are in Superflex leagues. Jake was in just a traditional one quarterback league. These are all 12-teamers. These are all half PPR scoring. That's right, Jake, right? Half PPR scoring for all of these?
All of them. Yes, all of them.
Half PPR across the board. And before we get going, just another tip of my invisible cap to Jake for putting together another great round of flex leagues. Added some there's a new league this year, isn't there? An additional?
No. Same as there was 5 last year. There's 5 again this year. It was
right. So that's okay.
Yeah,
so
everything was online last year, so that's why.
Yeah, exactly. So back to live for a bunch of the drafts this year. Some of them, like mine, still going online. So big tip of the cap to you on that, Jake. Always fun to have these to enjoy with our friends in the industry and get to talk about and maybe help some people make decisions in their drafts as they are coming along. So Brandon, let's get on to your draft first. As I said, you were in a super flex draft. You were picking 7th, and we're just going to go over some of the more interesting picks. So in your draft, you had this is yours. Patrick Mahomes first, CMC second, Josh Allen third, Zeke fourth, Kyler fifth, and Dalvin Cook sixth. So it falls to you with the 7th overall pick, and you take Lamar Jackson. Dak Prescott was on the board. You took Lamar over Dak. You took Lamar over Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, maybe some of the other guys who were in that spot. How tough or easy was the decision that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if Dak got hurt last year, I'd be taking Lamar Jackson. I'd probably be taking Dak. And I don't think if Dak had the little shoulder thing going on, might also, be leaning towards Dak. But ultimately, I just wanted to make sure that my first-round pick was safe. And so I went with the guy that's had back-to-back 1,000 rushing yards and has averaged 31 touchdown passes the last 2 years. And, they're throwing a lot of talk around about getting Lamar Jackson to throw more. So if that ends up coming to fruition, that's even better for his value. But, I know that you were number 7 in a super flex, the same pick, and it clearly shows the relegation level that you were able to get Josh Allen at number 7, and I had to settle for Lamar Jackson. We aren't all so lucky.
That's very true. I was not expecting Josh Allen to be available to me with the 7th overall pick in my Superflex league, but hey, he was there, and that was probably the easiest pick I made all draft, not expecting to get Josh Allen. You're usually seeing Josh Allen go 3rd, maybe 4th at the absolute latest in a Superflex league, so to get him at 7 made things pretty easy. Jake, you were there live and in person for Brandon's draft. Thoughts on that 7th overall pick with Lamar? Would you have done the same thing?
I would have done the same thing. And the difference between your guys' drafts is just that one extra quarterback went off the board. So for what you guys are talking about, Murray went second to Florio, and then Beller, you got Allen for the third. But that was the difference, is Allen and Murray had already gone. I would have taken Lamar Jackson over Dak too. And, it has nothing to do with the injury. It has to do with, and I'm not coming for Funston with this, but Funston said, if not for the injury last year. Well, if not for last year, everybody was talking about Lamar Jackson being the number one quarterback because of the rushing upside. And he had a poor passing season, but everything built around them, even with the Bateman injury. Expect a little bit of an uptick this year in the passing game. And if he's the same Lamar Jackson running the ball, he's actually better than Lamar Miller running the ball. If he's better, if he's that same,
he is better than Lamar Miller
running
the ball.
If he's the same Lamar Jackson and just sees a modest 5, maybe even 10% uptick, really it was the touchdowns from the year before that. But yeah, Lamar Jackson should easily be the fourth quarterback.
Easily be the fourth quarterback.
What I meant about was like Dak pre-injury.
I know. That's why I said I wasn't coming for you.
Pace. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
If
I'm
that
with
had
you.
Played out for a season, then it would have been like, okay. I think we're probably talking Dak as a, right there with Allen and Mahomes.
Wait, you thought he was going to average 400 passing yards a game? Is that what you're saying?
I was ready for it. Yeah.
He's going to throw for what? What's the quick math on that? 6,400 yards? Is that what you're going to have him throw?
Right, 4,000 yards by week 10.
Yeah,
6,800 yards in a 17-game season.
I was talking last year.
Really quick here, Funston. So Lamar's QB4, right? Like you would have taken Kyler Murray if Kyler Murray fell to you.
I actually have Lamar QB3. I actually have him ahead of Kyler. So yeah,
interesting.
So you were happy then. You were happy to see Kyler go off the board and see Lamar fall to you.
Yeah. Splitting hairs, but yeah.
That's
where I would have went.
Yeah, I kind of wanted, even though Josh Allen was obviously my QB2 and the easy pick for me, I kind of wanted Kyler to be the guy just for the sake of having Kyler and having that fun player.
But Kyler, you've been talking about Kyler for 2 years now.
I had him as I had him at like 50-1 to win the MVP last year, and after that Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins, I was just running around my house feeling like he's on his way, and then things didn't exactly play out that way the rest of the season. In the second round, you actually have a very interesting pick here, Aaron Jones, to your team. You and I talked about him last week, Funston, so we know where I stand on Aaron Jones. We know where you stand on Aaron Jones. So he was the 6th pick of the second round for you, RB8. Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb had gone just before him. You took him one spot ahead of where Calvin Ridley ended up going. The next running backs off the board, Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor. First, I'm actually going to go to Jake on this because obviously you planted a flag on Aaron Jones already. Jake, what do you think of that? What do you think of Aaron Jones over Calvin Ridley and that next group of running backs?
Calvin Ridley, I don't mind. This is the running back versus wide receiver discussion if you want to go that route. Over the rest of the running backs, I have him over Najee Harris. I have him over Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon. There's no way on earth I'm taking him over Austin Eckler. That's where it comes down to. Is Austin Eckler, for all intents and purposes, the same discussion that you and I had last year for a different reason. But we know Austin Eckler, top 5. We had got rid of Anthony Lynn, and he's still a mess behind him, where they're now talking up Larry Roundtree as potentially his backup just because of how messy that is behind him. And he doesn't need 20 touches per game. And the reason I bring that up, this is the same conversation I had with Aaron Jones and you last year about what comes down to is their touches aren't too dissimilar. But I know the consistency I get from Austin Eckler versus Aaron Jones. Yes, if Aaron Rodgers being back lets him have that touchdown success, Aaron Jones will finish in front of Austin Eckler. However, I just don't want to weigh that touchdown, especially with A.J. Dillon in his second season. As you know, I think he's kind of not a poor man's, like the discount story is even too low because he's not that far behind Derrick Henry, but he's a lesser version of Derrick Henry. I do think the touchdowns are at risk for somebody who only runs for about 1,000 yards, and that's my biggest concern. If you want to take Aaron Jones, I'm not going to hate it. I just would never do it.
It's my favorite pick of the whole draft. I wouldn't take Austin Eckler over Aaron Jones any way, shape, or form. He's been a top 5 running back the last 2 years. Why can't we just call him that? Doesn't he own that? He's been one of the best inside the 5-yard line at converting carries into touchdowns. Like, why would they just automatically, because A.J. Dillon's bigger, go away from a guy who's just been massively efficient in the red zone? So
they already go away from him.
Look at Aaron Jones is doing what you want Austin Eckler to do.
Austin Eckler's already done what Austin Eckler wants to do. Are we doing it? We'll do it today.
Jones
we'll do it. We'll do the same bet we did last year.
14 plus. Yeah.
Oh
God, I love that.
Side bet.
I'm as high on Aaron Jones this year as I am on anybody, I think. So I'm fine with that.
let's.
I was very happy with that.
Yeah. So I'm also I have Austin Eckler on my flex team. Aaron Jones was off the board. I'm with Funston on this one. If Aaron Jones would have been available to me and I was looking at both of them, I would have taken Aaron Jones. I love Austin Eckler too. I mean, it's not like I was crying about getting Austin Eckler, but I definitely would have.
I have him back to back.
Yeah, so we all, but that's what we're talking about. You have to make these decisions. Jake, I'm going to look back at last season. We're looking at 5 rushing touchdowns from 5 yards and in for Aaron Jones last season.
That's fine.
The year before was even crazier, epic. I mean,
the year before that, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from 7 in it, from 5 in it.
Stupid 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So so doesn't what Funston's saying about him sort of owning that skill carry some weight here?
No, because I don't think that's guaranteed this year. I do think A.J. Dillon's a significant factor. If people can, Brandon even said it. You can say I'm crazy, but I do think it's something to be majorly concerned about that because if it was Austin Eckler, this is the difference I'm coming into. If it's Austin Eckler loses the passing game, he's done for. Like if he loses that, I don't disagree with if you want to come at for that part. It's just Austin Eckler's not losing that. Where it comes down to is A.J. Dillon's a bigger threat than Jamal Williams ever was in that specific aspect. If you added, if put it this way, if A.J. Dillon got hurt tomorrow and now Colin Hill is the backup, I'm with you. Aaron Jones is probably top 5 again. It's just, I just think A.J. Dillon's a significant threat that I don't want to bank on 10 touchdowns again.
Okay, but what if it's 6 touchdowns from Aaron Jones, but he absorbs 25 of Jamal Williams' 35 catches?
That's not happening.
Really?
I would take that as a separate side bet.
No, but I mean, Aaron Jones is his career high is 49. You don't think he can get 60 plus catches this year?
No.
I absolutely am.
No, I don't think that. I don't think this.
Man,
is
I am.
offense. No.
I am loving this side bet. This Jones, we bring it back. Last year it was me and Jake, Jones and Eckler, and Jake got to weasel out of it because of Eckler not playing enough games, and even though Jones was going to crush him. Jones was going to crush him in that bet. So now we can bring back Aaron Jones versus Austin Eckler, but I'll sit this one out and you guys can battle it out. There's one more question I want to get to with your team, Funston, and it has to do with the running back position. I'm going to pull the draft board up. I know it's a little bit small, but the blue is running backs, and this is Funston's team right here. Blue is running back and green is wide receiver, and you can see a whole lot of blue going up the middle there, including that fourth dot. That fourth dot is Josh Jacobs. Even though you already had 3 running backs on your team, you took Josh Jacobs in the 6th round. Already had Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, and J.K. Dobbins. Already had 2 quarterbacks in Lamar and Joe Burrow. And then the 6th round rolls around. T. Higgins, Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk, Adam Thielen, Odell Beckham, Chase Claypool. All those guys are available. You don't have a receiver. You take Josh Jacobs over all those guys as your 4th running back. Why?
Well, because all those guys, I kind of have them lumped together. I didn't have any standout love receiver left. And Josh Jacobs is my RB16. And I was getting him after Myles Gaskin and Kareem Hunt at RB24.
This is pre-Myles Gaskin preseason hubbub for everyone out there.
Exactly.
This draft took place.
Myles Gaskin's always had is it?
Yeah. I'm just so everyone knows. That's part of the reason why Myles Gaskin went as early as he did.
Yeah, it was half there wasn't just the one receiver I had to have at that point. I was okay, one of these guys will fall to me on the comeback, and I'll just start running backs in my flex spot, and I'll just figure out 3 receivers that I can get, and and I felt like I could still get 3 solid receivers that I could start every week, and I just couldn't pass it. Josh Jacobs at RB24, I just think that was stupid good value, so I just decided to go that way. In retrospect, I'm okay with it. I don't think my receivers are great. I don't think they're bad either. I'm just missing, I'm missing kind of that go-to stud alpha receiver. But I got a lot of guys that can be wide receiver 2s.
We can set that up really quick, and then Jake going to go to you. So Brandon ended up going with receivers for 5 of his next 6 picks. And so what does your team look like in a super flex league when you go 4 RBs and 2 quarterbacks off the top? Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark, Brandon Cooks, and Jarvis Landry are the 5 receivers that Brandon took over the next 6 rounds. So certainly not a bad build after the way that you started. Jake, what do you think about just that brand of start in general? And obviously it depends. Like Brandon says, Josh Jacobs is his running back 16. You can fight against that or not fight against that, but more like if you already have 3 running backs and 2 receivers, would you take your RB16 if you don't have any receivers on the board?
Only because of this is so 2 factors. Everybody needs to remember out there if they're looking at this is also 2 flex draft. So right. You remember it's 2 running backs. You can also start up to 4. You can start up to 5 wide receivers. So looking at the board here, if I could do a super flex, and even if you gave me Aaron Jones, if I could just copy paste Brandon Funston's draft, I would take it every single time. Like this is just because when he took Jacobs in the 6th round, right after that, Higgins, Jones, Ayuk, Thielen, Beckham, Claypool, and then he gets Sutton. Same tier. Juju Smith-Schuster in the next round, still pretty much in the same tier of wide receivers.
Tier, yeah.
If DJ Shark comes back healthy, you could argue he's in the same tier. Like that's what's crazy about it. It's like, no, Funston doesn't have a legit go-to, can't be beat top 10 wide receiver, no question about it. If one of them finished inside the top 10, it wouldn't shock me, but at worst case scenario, he's got at least 2, if not 3 inside the top 25 after having 4 running backs. And that's the thing is like this team is like Joe Burrow's second quarterback. This team is perfectly set up. I would be surprised. I'll put it this. What is this today? August 18th. You can put this one down. It's not really a bet, but I would bet money. I would put money on the fact that Funston's a top 4 team at the end of the year.
Look at that.
We got higher praise as I've ever got from Jake. I'll take it.
we need to get our friends over at BetMGM to take a look at these teams and place some odds on them so that we can just gamify the game, right? We've already gamified the NFL. Let's gamify the game itself and start betting on these fantasy leagues. We're going to take a look at Jake's team next. First, however, want to talk about some of our sponsors. Roman, back with us here today. The world's opening back up. So many new thrills are on the horizon, whether you've been in a relationship for years, just getting started, or ready to get back out there and meet new people. When the moment comes, you want to be ready. Roman can certainly help with that. Go to GetRoman.com/fantasy now to talk to a U.S. licensed healthcare professional. With Roman, you get a free online valuation and ongoing care for ED, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. Again, it's a U.S. licensed healthcare professional who's going to work with you here. And if medication is appropriate, it ships to you free with 2-day shipping. The whole process straightforward, discreet, and also very simple. All you got to do is go to GetRoman.com/fantasy and complete an online visit. If you do that, GetRoman.com/fantasy, you can get for $15 off your first month of treatment. Again, that is GetRoman.com/fantasy to get started now and get $15 off your first month of treatment. Today, many small business owners, are busier than ever. Sometimes you can't even get the words out. You're so busy, right? And because they're focused on growing businesses, they can't really recruit the talent that they want. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs has made it easier to find and hire the best candidates for free. You can get started by posting your first job for free to reach LinkedIn's network of 740 million professionals. Fill out targeted screening questions and then filter it all down to find exactly the right candidate for the job that you are looking to fill. You want to post that first job for free? Here's what you do. Just go to linkedin.com/fantasy. It's linkedin.com/fantasy to post your first job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, guys, let's move on now to Jake's draft. Jake was the one person who was not, among us 3 at least, who was not in a super flex league, so a much more traditional draft board. I will share it here in a second. Jake, you had the 9th pick in your draft. We saw the typical running backs you would expect to see go off the board first: CMC, Cook, Kamara, Zeke, Derrick Henry, then a couple of receivers, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce going 8th. So a pretty standard start to a non-super flex draft. At 9, you take Saquon Barkley over the aforementioned discussed Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, Stephon Diggs, swinging back around Austin Eckler. So a nice RB start. I'm guessing from having talked to you multiple times a week for hours at a time, these were pretty easy picks for you, yeah?
Yeah, this was 2 of the easiest picks that I had in the draft, honestly. Barkley at 6, I'd still take him. Probably, at this point with Zeke, I could see the argument for taking Zeke as the 5th running back, if not Barkley, just because you don't want to deal with those first 2 or 3 games. Maybe he only gets 15 touches a game, but I'm okay with that, as well's been discussed. And then if I have Austin Eckler as my RB7, 1 spot in front of Aaron Jones, then with Taylor, Gibson, Chubb, and like those guys still going off the board before Eckler came back to me in the second round. Yeah, it was Eckler. That was an easy pickup. The funny thing is to jump into it real quick, I kind of would semi-throwback Austin Eckler if this was hindsight and go probably Najee Harris or Joe Mixon, only because Keenan Allen was the last wide receiver of his tier, and I didn't want to go Eckler Allen as my second and third pick just to pair them up just in, as it goes.
Sure.
I don't try to get away from it that hard, but when it's close enough, I actually hemmed and hawed a bit and then went Chris Godwin. Maybe going back, I would just stick with it and just go with Keenan Allen. But that's what it comes down to. Sometimes you look at these things and go back and be like, I just wish a little bit different.
So you're saying you would trade Eckler and Godwin for Najee and Keenan Allen? You'd rather have
it's still a wash. Pairing? It's still a wash trade. It just would have. It's more. It comes down to I have legitimate concerns that Godwin is even necessarily the number one wide receiver for the Buccaneers. I do think he is. Sure, that's where I took him, but there's a chance Evans could be the guy, mostly because don't know if Antonio Brown's going to look like he did in December. This whole thing could be crazy. So that's really what it comes down to. And I know Keenan Allen's going to get his 130, 140 targets again.
Hey, Brandon, any thoughts on that wide receiver grouping? Jake took Chris Godwin right over Keenan Allen. We just talked about why. And then Mike Evans, Robert Woods come in the next couple of wide receivers off the board. So Godwin, Allen, Evans, Woods, your thought on that group of guys and the ranking that they went in this draft?
Yeah, no, I think, hindsight being 2020, I'm with you that I think I'd probably rather have Najee and Keenan Allen. Although I got to be honest, I probably would have just went with Eckler and Keenan Allen. I mean, I try to think about them in a vacuum. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but are you really trying to avoid that a whole lot as you're drafting? Like, especially when you're talking about, elite talents that are just going, we expect guys in the second and third round to be consistently putting up numbers week in and week out.
Right.
So it is when I kind of half expected what happened later on in the draft to happen as well. I don't want to do it with three separate teams. That's really what it comes down to. Because my next two picks, I kind of saw coming. Well, that third round, of course, it's funny I'm saying this because my last two articles, some of the questions in the comments, the first thing I've been saying is stop trying to predict the draft. But we can kind of get a sense, and especially I'm not saying our level, whatever, that's going to sound so high and mighty, but at our level, you expect and where things are going to go. Like I was almost guaranteeing Kyle Pitts was going to be my fourth round pick because I had a quick turnaround. There was only 6 picks with 3 teams.
You were comfortable that no one was going to scoop him there? Nothing from Jamie Eisenberg, Matt Schauf, or Brandon Murchison?
I had a really good feeling that Kyle Pitts, because he's kind of overdrafted. I know he's overdrafted, but I knew I wasn't going to get him in the 5th round. But I know looking at the board and the way that running backs were sliding down a little bit, there was a good chance that Mike Davis was still going to be in their 5th round. I was like, if Mike Davis is still there in the 5th round, I'm not going to be able to pass on him. So I know I'm already pairing up picks and Davis. So that's what took me so long. That's why I took 50 seconds of the clock. Is that really going to happen? I'm trying to predict 2 rounds of a draft, and I tell people not to do that all the time. And I was right, but there's a good chance I could have been wrong. And if Mike Davis was gone and Sanders was still sitting there, then I would have been like, damn, I should have went with Keenan Allen, to Brandon's point. So this is why you don't try to predict the draft, but it just happened to happen this time.
And Mike Davis is your Josh Jacobs pick for me, where it's
right.
RB 23, and you probably have him ranked in the, 17,
top 15, RB 17.
Yeah,
17.
It's just too good of a value to pass up at that point.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, you gotta trust yourself, and that's definitely something that we saw there. Jake, you said it right there. Kyle Pitts. I know we've talked about him a bit. We haven't actually dove into him that much. You say he's overdrafted, but you still take him. So I mean, is this Julio in rookie's clothing here?
Really, this is what I keep saying is Justin Jefferson last year. And no, he's not going to put up Justin Jefferson's numbers, but it's the role he's stepping into. If you said he was a wide receiver, he was drafted as a wide receiver, if you take Jamar Chase and put him on this team instead of Kyle Pitts, it's the role he's stepping into. And that's the number 2 receiver. Forget positions. He's the number 2 wide receiver, essentially, for this team, despite being a tight end. So, and the 4th round, it's overdrafted, but that's because I said, Hockenson went late in the 5th. I knew he should be right around Hockenson. I just wasn't expecting him to be there at what I had the 509. So getting my guy, quote unquote, looking back at the draft, when my team looked a little bit better, if maybe I went DJ Moore and Hockenson. I don't know. I have hesitancies about Hockenson, but I went for my guy. I'm playing for first place. If Kyle Pitts breaks the mold and he's the best since your boy at tight end, but even the best since Jeremy Shockey, I mean, it's going to pay off. But the risk, obviously, is that he's like every other rookie tight end and only puts up 700 yards.
Who's your boy, Beller?
Well, he knows the tight end for the Bears. Way back in the day.
Ditka?
Way back in the day. Mike Ditka. Look, Mike Ditka is not my boy. All right. The fact that he's like this clownish caricature who represents Chicago actually really bothers me. I was like a year and a half when the Bears won that Super Bowl, so I don't have any like nostalgic ties to it myself. I promise you, Mike Ditka is not my boy.
All right, there you go, Mike. Are you just really upset that Jenkins is having surgery? Is that what that is?
Oh my God! Can we get Charles Leno back in Chicago? Hey, I'll live with a 39-year-old Jason Peters starting at left tackle. I suppose. Let's get back to your draft though here for a sec, Jake. So as we've talked about, you go Falcon in the 4th and 5th round with Kyle Pitts and Mike Davis. You took Javonte Williams 2 rounds later. We've talked a lot about Javonte Williams on this show, so I think we can sidestep that for a second. You had a similar run to Brandon in wide receivers. Both you guys didn't take too many wide receivers early, and so Brandon had the 5 receivers in 6-round run. You had a 4 receiver in 5-round run. You guys both end up with Brandon Cooks. You also get Laviska Shenault, Darnell Mooney, and Traquan Smith. And we've talked about Shenault a lot. We've talked about Mooney a lot. Traquan Smith is a guy who we haven't really talked about too much. You can see Traquan Smith right there to Jake in the 10th round, wide receiver 56. I mean, are you buying that he can step up in this offense with Michael Thomas out for, question mark length?
No, but he doesn't need to at wide receiver 56. That's really what it comes down to. There's been the talk with him missing, and now he just returned back to practice yesterday, but they're talking about Marquez Callaway is the best looking receiver and that he could even be the number 1 when Michael Thomas is out. Guess what? They're the 1 and 2. If it's Smith then Callaway, or if it's Callaway then Smith, they're the 1 and 2. They're the top 2 receivers with a tight end we just talked about, and there's been the concerns of Adam Trotman that he's blocking half the time that he's out there. Alvin Kamara is the number 1 technical quote unquote receiver, but they're still top 3. They're the top 2 wideouts. So it really comes down to, okay, maybe he's number 2 and Callaway is number 1. Until Thomas gets back, you're still talking about volume every single game, whether it's from Winston or from Hill. And again, does he maybe get outside, if he's set somewhere in the wide receiver 40s to 50 range? Sure, very, very likely. But again, it's wide receiver 56. He's my 5th wide receiver who might not ever play for me. And if he does become the number 1, it's pure upside at that point.
Yeah, I just haven't really seen him in much places. Brandon, have you seen Traquan going really at all?
Well, he's late, but now, like Jake says, the Marquez is getting the helium and getting all the buzz right now. So I'm seeing him go now. But like Jake said, could still be Traquan, it could still be Marquez. It could just be an even kind of distribution for both of them. I was wondering, Jake, in the 10 days since we drafted, is there any revisionist stuff you would have done with those receivers? Like, I know in the last pod you kind of poo-pooed on Shenault after watching.
Poo-pooed on. We talked about this last week, guys. Just poo-pooed.
I like to be very literal with this.
No, he wants me to Odell Beckham and like pull down my pants and just poo-poo on.
Out of here with that. One is a colloquialism meaning to dismiss, and one is disgusting and would get you thrown in prison for assault.
Well, I was just wondering if Jake is willing to go to prison for assault.
For Laviska, honestly, like that usage in that first game was obviously concerning. I talked about Colin Johnson and the 14 players. They're like, hey, where did this guy come from? That's what the article is about. It's kind of like these super, super, super deeps. If you're in a deeper league and you're trying to stash guys and you say week 11, like, where did this guy come from? How come nobody was talking about him? That's what it is. And it's Colin Johnson. I brought up Colin Johnson because he was playing in the DJ Shark position, which is the concern for Laviska Shenault. So after that, the Corey Davis volume in that game, I would definitely switch out. I would take Corey Davis
or even
Shenault.
Marvin Jones looks like went wide receiver 55. Maybe you take him instead of Shenault.
Yeah. Well, so the biggest thing was Marvin Jones too. Is the concern of Darnell Mooney was still there, and I love Marvin Jones. So that came into a play too. I would, if you just gave me Marvin Jones instead of Shenault, obviously, because I've been talking up Marvin Jones. So 100%, yeah. This is what happens when you draft before anything even happens.
That's what I was just wanted to illustrate. 10 days can change the
changes a lot.
I mean, I could throw Traquan back and take Henry Ruggs. And no, I'm just saying at this point, I could probably get Traquan in like the 13th round now.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even need to go there.
Yeah, a lot changes, but not just 10 days, but 10 days in which there was just the Hall of Fame game was played the day you guys drafted, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't even have anything. And now we have a full week's worth of preseason games and 10 days just of training camp stuff. So there is some stuff that has changed. One more for you here, Jake. Brandon told us his favorite pick of his draft was Aaron Jones in the second round. What's your favorite pick of your draft? We're seeing basically all of it on the screen here. Yeah, your favorite pick from your draft. Favorite pick that you got on your team here.
Real quick, by the way, the Marvin Jones was because I already had Shenault. That's why I didn't take him.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I can't. I got to go with the tie. Mike Davis and Javonte Williams.
That's what I would choose too.
That's what just is. I can't. They're just so. Mike Davis in the 5th. And then late 5th, and Javonte Williams late 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Those two. I don't know how I could break the tie between the two of them.
I don't think I've seen Javonte go that late in an experts, quote unquote experts draft yet. So that was, to almost get to RB30 on him was pretty crazy.
Pretty nice.
Like the Kareem Hunt at RB30 was kind of nuts too.
Oh, that was
honestly
nuts,
for Jamie right behind that.
Yeah. Well, look at what do we see up here that's really pushing that?
Edmonds,
Chase Edmonds,
really
RB28.
Sermon Harris and Sermon Harris.
Sermon and Edmonds I would take after Hunt, and I love Sermon. Outside of that, now maybe now Hunt in front of Gaskin with the talk, depending on what league you're in. But this is what we talked about the other day. Hunt is going to get drafted here. Hunt's going to probably finish inside the top 15.
And he'll be better than this.
Yeah, well, if he plays every single game because of the attrition of running back and what happens.
It's a fun battle that I think we have to talk about. And I have no idea, honestly, where the two of you guys would fall on this. But Hunt and Travis Etienne, I think, is a pretty fun, with guys who have similar skill sets we expect to play similar-ish roles in their offenses. Right? That's a pretty good one. And one sort of the devil you know and one sort of the devil you don't. So that could be a fun battle and really maybe
the devil we do know from that first game is that Urban's going to even use Carlos Hyde. So give me Kareem Hunt.
Hey, man, just give Urban an Ohio State guy and that's it, right? He's just going to – that's it. He's going to be loyal to those Buckeyes for as long as he possibly can. My team up next here. Let's talk about the NBA before we get to that, though, because the NBA is celebrating its 75th anniversary this coming season. And this coming season is coming very fast with the NBA getting back to its typical schedule. And today's episode of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast is sponsored by the NBA and its quest to advance the game of basketball, grow its community, and impact culture. The league celebrates its teams, players, and fans across the past and present and the future as part of its 75th anniversary season. Again, that is happening this year. That's game highlights pivotal moments on court and beyond, from iconic plays in the arena to impact players have in the community. That's the NBA. That's game. This is more than just basketball. It's what connects us all and keeps us coming back for more. So be sure to check this out all season. And again, Summer League just behind us. That season coming fast and furious. Let's talk about my team, guys. I was pretty happy with this squad. We're going to have to do this a little bit differently, right? Because, you guys are going to have to ask the questions. I'm not just going to set myself up and answer the questions. So I will pull my team up here. Give me one second. I did start with
Austin Eckler for the third time.
we can maybe skip Austin Eckler. There is something to talk about, I would say, with Austin Eckler, with respect to Austin Eckler for my team and how I ended up taking him. Here is the draft board for mine. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see it better. I took Josh Allen, 7th overall. That was just a layup of a pick. Austin Eckler was my second-round pick. Calvin Ridley, Joe Burrow. I was the first person in this one to have two QBs. Joe Burrow going QB 13. I had a similar run of wide receivers, although at a higher price point than you guys, getting Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, and Odell Beckham. Raheem Mostert in there as my second RB. So I'll throw it to you first, Jake, here. Any questions you got for me in this team I built?
Yeah, how the hell did you like RB10 be Saquon Barkley your entire draft? You just let Chad Parsons get Saquon Barkley at the third to the last pick of the second round.
Those times in drafts, and we've all been there, where it's like, man, I hope someone takes player X because I feel like I have to take him if he's there, but I really want to take someone else, right? We've all had that feeling, and that was what I had with Saquon Barkley and Austin Eckler. So Jake, yes, I like Aaron Jones better than Austin Eckler, but everything you said about Austin Eckler, I'm totally on board with. And there is for sure an Alvin Kamara potential season in Austin Eckler. So what happened here? This is fun. I'm playing for first place. This is supposed to be fun. I just wanted Austin.
Well, if you're
Eckler
playing
on
for
my
first
team.
place, you take Saquon Barkley. Come on.
And I mean, the injuries are not something just a hand wave. They're just not. They're really not. With what he dealt with last season and the way they've slow played him this season, I really don't think there's something that we just totally dismiss. And yes, I realize who I'm comparing him against in the injuries that Austin Eckler has had in his career, but I just wanted that Austin Eckler share on my team. Now, I was shocked to see him go as much later as he did. And I really thought that we were going to be looking at Saquon going right in the turn, or, Derek Van Riper taking Nick Chubb over him. Sorry, DVR, our colleague here, that feels a little questionable to me. Florio going with Jonathan Taylor over Saquon Barkley, something maybe I could have got on board with a couple of weeks ago, but not so much now. They could be saying the exact same thing about me taking Austin Eckler, but I don't know. I feel pretty good about getting him on my squad.
I'm going to propose a trade to you, Beller. You tell me what you want. So all right. You give me Amari Cooper and Raheem Mostert. I'll give you Kareem Hunt and T. Higgins. Which side you taking?
I'm taking Cooper and Mostert easily.
Okay. All right.
I think the better question would have been. So I see where you're going, Funston. So what I was gonna say is I'll give you So the trade could that facet of what you're looking at here, DeAndre Swift and T. Higgins versus Godwin and Mostert.
DeAndre Swift and T. Higgins versus Godwin and Mostert.
Yeah,
we're basically trying to say, should you have taken a little higher running back and taken the?
Because I would, my concerns about Swift, but I would take Swift or even Sanders. I have concerns about Sanders. I would take one of those running backs and Higgins versus Godwin and Mostert, mostly because Funston, you kind of danced around my question. My question was going to be, if you knew you were getting Cooper in the 6th round like you did, would you have still taken Godwin or went running back there? Because that's what it comes down to, is I don't blame you for the Godwin pick, but then when you still got Cooper, I was like, it would have looked a little bit nicer, in my opinion, if you went with one of those 2 running backs.
So that was a huge surprise to me, especially when you look at what happened after me. The only person who I knew was probably not going to take a receiver was going to be Brad Evans, right after having Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson as 2 of his
the next 5 picks for wide receivers.
And so I'm looking at all these receivers and I'm thinking, man, so the next 2 guys on my board at wide receiver when I took Godwin are Godwin and Amari Cooper. Godwin, then Woods, then Amari Cooper. So I just felt like if I don't take one of them here, I'm not going to get any of them. I really thought that all of them would go. And so if I would have known Amari Cooper was still available to me, then maybe I jump in on DeAndre Swift, because that was my instinct. DeAndre Swift was my first instinct in that spot, but I really wanted a receiver, and I really wanted one of those 3 receivers, Godwin, Robert Woods, or Amari Cooper, and I just thought if I didn't take one there, I wasn't going to get any of them. So if you told me I knew I was going to get Amari Cooper, then I probably do take DeAndre Swift, where I took Godwin, and then, yes, T. Higgins would be my guy. Had that been a receiver where I took Raheem Mostert, T. Higgins would have been my guy. Now, do I for sure want that? I'm not sure, because I love Raheem Mostert. You guys know that. I've talked about Raheem Mostert a lot on this show, and we know Trey Sermon's going to be involved, but with everything Raheem Mostert has done the last couple of seasons, I mean, he's still going to be the one. I think he's still the lead back in that backfield, and I think all you really need to prove that to yourself is the fact that he didn't play in that first preseason game. And so it's going to be a split, of course, but he, I think, still leads that backfield, that Kyle Shanahan backfield. He is going to be the lead guy. He has the breakaway speed. We've seen some huge plays for him. I know he doesn't have a huge receiving role, but it's also no accident that he has a couple of monster receiving touchdowns in each of the last couple of seasons, because that's part of his game. That's part of his skill set. So I am very comfortable with Raheem Mostert as an RB2 this season, and I don't know where you guys are on that.
Yeah.
Well, look at. I mean, he can be epic. I think what we don't know is, I mean, he seems like he's questionable every week. So the durability has been a factor. But I think if you can get a relatively healthy season out of him, even with Trey Sermon, you're going to get solid production. I'm with you. I mean, he put an epic run when they went to the Super Bowl that one year of just game in and game out, just huge numbers. So we know the upsides there. I think it's just about, can he be consistently healthy and get, consistent carries? Is Trey Sermon going to be, the Javonte Williams to the Melvin Gordon kind of thing, where are we going to see a changing of the guard at some point? So I think there's some question marks there. But I think Damian Harris is a guy I like a lot as well. It's a nice kind of, a little bit of a security blanket there as your number 3 running back to have Damian Harris.
Yeah, that was another one that I felt good about. And Jake, you and I share a lot of players across these two teams. We both have Godwin. We both have Damian Harris. We both have
Scroll down a little bit. I want to
Eckler.
see. I want to see some of the later
Eckler.
round.
So this was the back half of my
Mooney.
draft, and we both have Mooney. So yeah, so
And
there
I
you
got
go.
Saquon
Like,
Is
Shepherd.
that David Johnson right there?
that is disgustingly
matter,
David
Johnson.
Johnson.
That one hasn't aged well since
Since last night.
That was no. That was just last night, and I just like I wanted one more back. I really thought the problem was I really thought I was going to get Tevin Coleman, and I was trying to be cool and slow playing it in Tevin Coleman. So lesson to everyone out there: just take the guy you want and don't try to be cool and slow play it. I really thought I could get Tevin Coleman and David Johnson, and David Johnson is just a pure insurance sort of guy for me. But even though it was 2 rounds earlier, I wish I would rather just have Tevin Coleman.
It's super flex without an additional roster spot, so there's only 54 running backs. So when you need to draft or drop somebody in the first week, you can go drop David Johnson.
It's very true. I got too cute in a few of these spots. Like so, our buddy Chris Meaney. Once I didn't get a tight end, I just had it in my mind. All right, Mike Gesicki, Cole Kmet, going to pair those two guys up, and I'll play matchups. I'll see who maybe starts off better, whatever. So I take Gesicki where I felt like I had to take him in the 12th round, and then I was like, all right, no one's really going to take Cole Kmet out from under me. And I should have known better because I was just on Chris Meaney's show last week, and we were both just fawning over Cole Kmet, but I really didn't think anyone was going to take him. And then Meaney took him. Again, another lesson. Like I liked Kmet better
let me ask
than
you,
David
I was
Johnson.
going to bring
too.
up Gesicki for one reason. Is just the tight end immediately after him is Gesicki over Jonnu. Is that because of the Jonnu ankle sprain, or would you have gone Gesicki anyway?
That is because of the ankle sprain. I probably would have taken Jonnu, but I don't know. I just feel like the investment in the Miami offense was there for the taking, and I kind of want that because I think Tua is going to take a big step forward this season, someone who I would have considered as a QB2 had I not already had Joe Burrow. But I wanted to buy into that Miami offense. I just feel a little bit better about that offense as a whole than I do about New England's as well. So I felt okay about that. But yeah, that's the back half of the draft. Anything else you guys have for me here?
I like the Sterling Shepard at 61, though. I think he's continuing to be one of the more undervalued plays at the wide receiver position. Yeah, no, I mean you didn't have like that weird clump of just one position like we did, where you had to kind of force your hand to have to take them over like a 5-round period. So you kind of spread it out along the way.
What was the number? I'll look at it. I was going to tell you to throw the board back up, but I can look real quick.
No, yeah, I'll throw it up.
No, I got it already. Shepard was 61. That's the thing. Shepard was 63 in my draft, but Shepard 63 in my draft because not super flex was all the way up in the 11th round. So just as a comparison between the two.
Yeah, shows you a little bit of difference in the formats. And one thing that we do have in common, I'm actually going to, and we're getting to the end of the show here, guys, so we're going to hold bounce back players till our next episode next week. I just want to end it on this note, and it's probably pretty appropriate. Not a surprise to the three of us, maybe not a surprise to people out there who have been following along with us all summer. There is one player in this entire NFL universe that all three of us drafted. All three of us share one player this season. It's a quarterback.
Oh, I already know. Yeah, there you go.
It's Joe Burrow. Draft. Joe Burrow. Draft. Joe Burrow. Right? I mean, we've been saying it all summer long, and here we are. We are all on the Joe Burrow train. So if Joe Burrow wins an MVP or something, we could all be celebrating as flex champions, maybe.
He was QB 13 for me. Where was he for you guys?
QB 13 for me as well. QB 10 for Jake.
There you go. Yeah, mine also, remember, single quarterback for mine. Right after him was Tannehill. And then QB 12 was Trey Lance, and QB 13 was Hurts, and 14 was Lawrence.
QB 12, my goodness.
QB 12.
John Daigle is also drunk at 10 a.m. or something because
he took like
everybody that's asking,
wide receivers,
eight
right?
straight wide receivers. At most, you could start 5. So
yeah. It's an interesting draft. A guy who maybe isn't even going to start for his own team week 1 as the 12th quarterback off the board. But hey, if you leave this show with absolutely nothing else in mind, remember, Joe Burrow is someone who you want on your fantasy teams this season. Draft Joe Burrow and listen to the Athletic Fantasy Football podcast. It doesn't have
Doesn't
quite
work
the same
very well.
flow as
No.
just something that is 4 syllables. But hey, we'll
That's like me
workshop it
trying to
over the
rhyme
weekend.
king and 17.
That doesn't really work so well either. We're going to workshop that over the weekend before we come back to you next week with our next episode of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you to everyone joining us on YouTube. Thanks, of course, to everyone listening to the podcast as well. Me, Jake, and Brandon back with you on Monday when we will get to those bounce back candidates and a whole lot more, especially since we will have a second week of preseason action to discuss. Until then, we'll talk to you all. Have a good weekend.